Hi, I'm Tiffany. Welcome to Towering TBR. So I went a bit crazy recently and just bought a ton of books. Combination of sales and good used books. I added a ton to my TBR. And I realized that a good chunk of them were influenced by other booktubers. So if I remember who told me about the book, I will make sure to mention them and link them in the description below. I have 26, so let's get started. I'm going to start off with middle grade. I recently picked up Bug Boys and Bug Boys Outside and Beyond. This is the sequel. I picked up this adorable middle grade graphic novel based on Allie over at Allison Page's recommendation. This follows two beetles who are best friends, Rhino Bee and Stag Bee, and they go on all sorts of adventures. The artwork is adorable, the friendship is wholesome, and all around, it was a joy to read, and I can't wait to pick up the second book as well. I recently heard that there's actually a third one now, but couldn't find it used, so I requested my library to get it in instead. I recently read Julia and the Shark by Kieran Millwood Hargrave and decided that I loved her lyrical writing and wanted to pick up another book that she had written. So I picked up The Island at the End of Everything. This follows Amy. She and her mother are living on this island, and one day a government official comes in and says that this island is going to be a lepers colony. And while her mother has leprosy, Amy does not, and she is sent away to a different island to be put in an orphanage. This is her journey trying to get back and reunite with her mother, and it just sounds like it'll be a beautiful, lovely story. I picked up Jep, Who Defied the Stars by Catherine Marsh. I read The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh not that long ago and really enjoyed her as a middle grade writer as well. This is set in the 17th century and follows a little person that they call a dwarf. I'm unsure about how they handle differences, so if you've read this, let me know. He is employed working for the palace as a court jester, but he is unhappy with his life and tries to flee. Honestly, I don't know much more about that other than he is basically trying to thwart fate. I picked up the middle grade graphic memoir El Defo by C.C. Bell. I have already read this, and when I found it for about $5, I was like, yes, I need to own this. This is based on her real-life story. She lost her hearing at a young age. When she enters a mainstream school, she is the only deaf person, and she has to wear this very large hearing aid that is like around her neck, and she feels very odd and different and othered. However, because her teacher needs to wear a microphone that is hooked up with her hearing aid so that she can hear lessons, she turns this into her superhero ability to be able to hear when the teacher is off doing other things. This was a very cute and wholesome story, and I really liked the healthy disability representation. I picked up A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornvat. I first heard about this book on Krista's channel, Books and Jams. This is apparently a retelling of Les Mis. We follow Pong, a boy who was born in prison to his mother who was also imprisoned. And unfortunately, he has to stay in the prison. But one day he escapes, and it is up to the warden's daughter to they're embarrassed by this. So she goes off to try to restore her family's reputation by catching the escaped convict. While they're in flight, they learn a lot about the city and things that they didn't know before. And I'm so excited for this. I actually haven't read Les Mis, but I've seen the movie and I love it. And I think that this sounds like a really fresh interpretation. I was in a bit of a sci-fi mood, and I've been intrigued to pick up more classic sci-fis. And this one is highly regarded. This is The Forever War by Joel Halderman. It's about a man who leaves Earth to go fight in this interstellar war. But due to time dilation, while he has only gone months, Earth has gone through centuries. And it's about what happens when he tries to return. Sounds really interesting, and I'm very excited. I picked up The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut. I heard about this first over on Jack's channel, Book Jack. He loves Kurt Vonnegut, and originally I was trying to get Slaughterhouse-Five, but couldn't find a used copy of it, and so I found this one instead. Kurt Vonnegut is supposed to be a very philosophical sci-fi writer with absurd and humorous notes. So we follow a billionaire, like the richest guy in the system, and he goes on some sort of space journey. It's also another sci-fi classic, and so I'm excited to pick this one up. Another sci-fi, Rosewater by Tade Thompson. This, I think, is the start of a trilogy. This is an Afrofuturist science fiction set in Nigeria. I think it's about people who acquire powers after an alien force lands near where they live. I don't really know a whole lot, but it looks really fascinating and definitely a very different sci-fi than what I normally read. I picked up this beautiful start of a graphic novel series called Die Volume 1. I first heard about this over on G's channel, Book Roast. And this is what I've heard is a kind of a dark Jumanji type story. It sounded really interesting, and it was on sale literally for $5 in perfect condition. So I thought I have to snap it up. I picked up Stiletto by Daniel O'Malley. I read the first book in the series, The Rook, just a couple months ago, and absolutely loved it. It's in this society where supernatural stuff happens, people have powers, and they have to fight against other people who have powers. And in this one, we see the agency that we saw in the first book team up with another agency who they previously did not trust. So it's a very tenuous relationship. I heard about this from Mara over at Books Like Whoa, and she absolutely loved The Rook, and I did too. And she said that she went in with really high expectations for this book and was kind of disappointed. She only gave it 3 stars and felt like it was a little bit messy and not following the same characters that we follow in the first book. I like this world enough that I think I've tempered my expectations so I can really enjoy this. But if you've read it, let me know. Is it worth the time? Because, it is like 600 pages. So let me know about that. I picked up The Devotion of Suspect X by Keigo Higashino. This is a Japanese translated thriller. I heard about this from Lala over at Books and Lala. She said that this is not so much a whodunit as a howdunit. We know that a man is murdered, and we know who the person is that did it, but we don't know how they did it. I've heard some really good things about this. I think Emily over at Books with Emily Fox also enjoyed this, and I really have found that I like Japanese thrillers quite a bit more than Western thrillers, so I'm very excited to give this a try. I picked up The Arsonist City by Hala Alyan, and I first heard about this over on Mercedes' channel, Mercy's Bookish Musings, and she raved about this. This is about a family who is originally from the Middle East, and when the grandfather dies and his son decides to sell the house in Beirut, they all take a journey over there to try and dissuade him. And this is like a really intricate family drama, and that just sounds really good. The other book I bought because of Mercedes is The Break by Katharina Vermette. This is a very hard-hitting, very triggering, and tragic book. We follow a young Métis woman who witnesses a violent assault, and she calls the police. And apparently we get lots of perspectives about what happened with this assault, what led up to it. We get lots of perspectives. I have heard that this, is difficult to read, and so I will wait until I am mentally ready for it. But she's even read it twice because a companion novel has now come out, or a sequel, I'm not sure. And she reread it and said it still holds up, so I was excited to pick this up as well. Another book written by an Indigenous person, 5 Little Indians by Michelle Good. I heard about this from Gemma over at Gemma Books, and she was raving about this. This also is incredibly traumatic and has lots of trigger warnings as well. This is about 5 Indigenous children who are taken from their families and put in a residential school. When they age out, their lives go in several separate directions. They are all traumatized from their experience and reach out and lean on one another during difficult times. The most beautiful book I picked up was The Parted Earth by Anjali and Jetty. This is set during India-Pakistan partition, which is a part of history that I've been excited to learn more about. This follows 16-year-old Deepa, who has a secret boyfriend who is Muslim, and they are separated due to the partition. She has his child, and there are all sorts of secrets about this family. And then we follow a later perspective, which I think is her granddaughter, and she goes back looking for answers and uncovers some more family secrets. Looks great. I love books about India, and I think that this is going to be really enjoyable. I picked up the Australian classic Cloud Street by Tim Winton. This is about 2 families who live together under one roof. I had this on my TBR a long time ago, actually, but I was reminded about it by Scott over at Gunpowder, Plot, and Fiction when he decided to do an Australian-themed readathon. Apparently, there's a little bit of magical realism in this as well, because he mentioned a talking pig. So we'll see if I like it. But this is also set like in the 1920s, and just seems to be kind of a family saga between these 2 families who live together. I have also picked up Disoriental by Nagar Javadi, and this is a translated book and a semi-autobiographical story. The author and the character were born in Iran, and due to their parents' political activism, they had to leave Iran and they immigrated to France. I heard about this book from Russell over at Ink and Paper blog. He said that it's a little bit dense, it's a little bit hard to get into, but that the story is so richly and intricately told, and I'm very excited. I love stories that are set in the Middle East, and apparently you learn a lot about Iranian politics, especially in the 1970s, I believe. If you've read this, let me know your thoughts on this, because I'm very excited, but a little bit intimidated. The last fiction book in this haul is Sister of My Heart by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. I picked this book up because I had recently read Independence by the same author and gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. That was a book set during the partition of India and Pakistan. One thing I love about this author is she is really great at creating very complex female friendships and relationships. And I think that's going to really hopefully shine through in this book as well. There are 2 cousins, Anju and Suda, and they are the best of friends. They have this great connection. However, their lives go in completely different directions. They are both married through arranged marriages. One of them stays in India and the other immigrates to the United States. And when great tragedy befalls one of them, they reach back out and try to deal with this together. Pretty sure there are some family secrets, some drama. The other thing I wanted to mention is this author has I want to say 10 to 20 other books. Have you read any other books by her that you would recommend? Let me know, because I'm not really sure where to go next after this one. I picked up Living and Loving in the Age of AIDS by Derek Frost. This is his memoir of him and his partner, and his partner gets AIDS in the 1980s and ultimately succumbs to it because at the time it was a death sentence. They created an AIDS charity together, and he still has it in memory of his partner that he lost. I'm really interested in hearing stories about the AIDS epidemic, and this one looks to be really good and hard-hitting. Another subject that I'm very interested in is reading about prisons. This is called Inside This Place, Not of It, and this is an essay collection based on women's experiences being incarcerated. This has been written by women who are either currently incarcerated or previously incarcerated. And they talk about all sorts of horrors that women have to undergo. We hear about sexual assault being really prevalent in males' prisons, but it is also prevalent in female prisons as well. And I'm pretty sure there's a story in here about a woman who was sterilized without her consent. There are all sorts of horrors, and this will definitely be a hard read, but I'm really interested to hear more about our broken prison system. I picked up The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee. This is a biography of cancer, and I first heard about this book by Emily over on Books with Emily Fox. She had read this and raved that this was really easy to read. It was fast-paced, and it was a really interesting look on kind of what we did previously for cancer treatment, what we've learned about cancer, and how that has just evolved over time. She did point out that this was written in 2010, and so she would have liked more updates of what has happened in studying cancer in the last, 13 years. But I think that this will be a really interesting and informative read. I picked up this memoir, Beautiful Country, by Qian Julie Wang. The tagline for this memoir is a moving story of an undocumented child living in poverty in the richest country in the world. So she and her family had illegally immigrated to the United States from China, and her parents had to work in sweatshops and get paid under the table because they did not have legal status. And they did their best to try and protect their daughter from that. But unfortunately, her mother gets ill and eventually has to seek medical treatment. I think that this will be a hard-hitting look at what it's like to live undocumented in our country. And it is really highly rated, and I'm excited to get to it. I picked up The Ice Pick Surgeon by Sam Kean. This is kind of a pop science type book. It's part history, part science, part true crime. It is basically stories about unethical uses of science, how it's been twisted for some evil purposes. The Ice Pick Surgeon is a reference to the doctors who did lobotomies and how those were often given to people against their will. Looks like it'll be really interesting and very fast-paced. And the last book is A Knock at Midnight by Brittany K. Barnett. I heard about this from Rincey over at Rincey Reads. This is part memoir, part social justice novel. The author talks about growing up with a drug-addicted mother and what those challenges were that she faced. She goes to law school and originally wants to be kind of a corporate lawyer in business and finance, but I think she catches wind of a story of a poor woman using drugs who was arrested, and because of the U.S.'s war on drugs, there are some really unfair sentences, and so she takes on some cases to try and get justice for these women who are often kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time and making choices the best out of a bad situation. I'm very interested in stories about our prison and how our justice system is messed up. I think that this will be incredibly eye-opening. So those are the books I picked up used from BetterWorldBooks. There are so many, so if you have any thoughts on them, help me prioritize. Leave me some comments telling me what you think of them or which ones you're most interested in hearing about. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.